if you are going to trade Caitlin Clark, or if you are going to keep Caitlin Clark, you're going to have to let Kelsey walk and lose her for nothing. You're then going to have to find some way of getting off the Lexi Hull contract because she's not good enough. You're going to have to find, you're going to keep Aaliyah Boston. Like, outside of Caitlin, Raven, and Aaliyah, and I don't think you're going to be able to get off the Mo Billings contract. So you might have to keep Mo Billings. Everybody else has to go. On the entire roster, everybody else has to go. And you have to literally go and, like...
The proposal hit the airwaves like a sledgehammer, and the reaction from Stephanie White was nothing short of explosive. Imagine being told that the most marketable athlete in the history of the WNBA isn't just a bad fit, but a player that needs to be shipped out immediately for the sake of the team. This wasn't some minor rumor or a whispered conspiracy. It was a full-blown demand to trade Caitlin Clark before the season completely implodes. The sheer audacity of suggesting the Indiana Fever should move on from their generational star has sent shockwaves through the front office, leaving everyone wondering if the system...
It looks like an organization in disarray, so no free agents are going to want to come. It is a near impossibility. It is a near impossibility to build around Caitlin Clark. We're not talking about all bullshit and Lynn Dunn. We're not going into conspiracy theories. We're talking purely ball. And for anyone saying Caitlin Clark to LA, that's the dumbest shit ever. LA don't have the assets. Why the fuck will Caitlin go to LA? That is the dumbest shit ever. We got to talk purely ball. Purely basketball. It is doing a disservice to your own team. It is doing a disservice to...
It all boils down to a clash of styles that some are calling completely unbasketable, a gap so wide that no amount of coaching can bridge it. We are watching two different philosophies fighting for air on the same court, and the reality is that one of them has to go. Stephanie White is a coach who wants to drag games into the mud, making them ugly and defensively heavy, while Caitlin Clark wants to fly. When you have a star player who only looks like herself when she goes rogue and ignores the plays being called, you have a recipe for a locker room disaster that no one saw coming.
And for anyone saying Caitlin Clark to LA, that's the dumbest shit ever. LA don't have the assets. Why the fuck will Caitlin go to LA? That is the dumbest shit ever. We got to talk purely ball. Purely basketball. It is doing a disservice to your own team. It is doing a disservice to Stephanie White. It is doing a disservice to Caitlin Clark to run this back. It's doing a disservice to all of them. You either let Stephanie White coach her team, which is the way the Fever made the playoffs last year. You can go find another guard.
The truth is, building around a talent like Clark is a near impossibility for the Fever in their current state. To actually make it work, the organization would have to fire the coach, fire every single assistant, fire the general manager, and even the president. Beyond the front office, they would need to get rid of 8 out of the 12 players on the roster, just to find a group that fits Clark's lightning-fast pace. Doing all of that while trying to prepare for a season makes the organization look like it's in total disarray, which means no high-level free agents would ever want to step foot.
And you don't want from an organizational point of view, you don't want your star player having to go rogue on a system. You just don't. As a coach, you don't want that. It's unfair on the coach. It is unfair on the coach to have a star player who's only good when she goes rogue. It is unfair on the player to basically be a passenger and standing in that corner and having to go rogue. It's unfair on everybody. Do you want to know the only person who this is fair to? Herb Simon, because he's cashing them checks. There is no basketball reason why Caitlin Clark should be on this team.
If they choose to stick with Stephanie White's vision, the only logical conclusion is the unthinkable: trading Caitlin Clark. The system currently in place is doing a massive disservice to everyone involved, from the coaching staff to the players themselves. Right now, the Fever are trying to force Clark into a role player position, essentially asking her to be a spot-up shooter who waits for her turn in isolation. It's a waste of the highest order, and it's turning one of the most exciting players in the world into just another body on the floor. The friction is becoming
Libby about a team. Fuck it. You want to know what you do? You call up the Dallas Wings. You call up the Wings. And you're like, okay. We're going to do the craziest shit ever. We're going to pair up Kelsey Mitchell with Enrique. Okay. You give us one of your minimum contract. You give us Zaza James. So we get another Kelsey Mitchell coming off the bench. You give us Zaza James. You give us the Aces pick. You give us your first round pick. And Enrique. You're taking our Mo Billings contract. We're giving you Caitlin. Caitlin Page Aziz win the fucking title. With a whack and Jess Shepard, they win the title.
Look at the numbers, and you'll see the frustration boiling over on the court. In recent games, Clark has been reduced to taking 12 contested shots, mostly late in the shot clock, while only getting 1 or 2 open looks the entire night. This is a player who thrives on transition and creativity, yet she is being forced into a your turn, my turn isolation game with Kelsey Mitchell. It's the exact opposite of what made her a superstar in college, and it's making the Fever one of the most difficult teams to watch in the entire league. The system isn't just failing her, it's actively suffocating her game.
Your team's not going to make it past the first round. You fluke the playoff run. This team might not make the playoffs with Caitlin Clark. Ironically, if you just take Caitlin Clark off this team, you have a better chance of making the playoffs. Or if you fire Stephanie White. But you're not going to fire Stephanie White. Because you would have to fire Stephanie White and get rid of half the team. You'd have to fire Stephanie White, trade Kelsey Mitchell, and get rid of half the team. It's one of those things where you have to make a choice. And there's no more, oh, this is okay.
The organization is effectively stuck between a rock and a hard place, with no easy way out. If they keep Clark, they likely have to let Kelsey Mitchell walk for absolutely nothing just to clear space for a new identity. They are also trapped under the Lexi Hull contract and the Aaliyah Boston dynamic, which doesn't seem to mesh with the high-speed offense Clark needs. It's a roster built for a different era of basketball, and trying to plug a generational point guard into it is like trying to put a Ferrari engine inside a tractor. It might run, but
if you want to do that with Caitlin Clark, it's not going to work. It's like putting Stephen Curry on the... It's like replacing Chauncey Billups with Stephen Curry on the 04 Pistons. Stephen Curry's 100 times better than Chauncey Billups. The 04 Pistons were better. Like, the 04 Pistons would be better with Chauncey. They just would. If you tried to replace... I'm just trying to think of a better, quote-unquote, better player. Like... I was thinking of a better player that a replacement would make a team worse. Like...
Some insiders are suggesting a radical move to the Chicago Sky as a way to save Clark's career and the Fever's future. The idea is to bring in players like Natasha Cloud, J.C. Sheldon, and Ricuna Williams, while collecting whatever draft picks Chicago still has left. It sounds like madness, but the alternative is watching Clark average a mediocre 14 points per game while the team misses the playoffs entirely. The Sky have the grit and the defensive identity that Stephanie White actually wants, making it a trade that could theoretically benefit both sides.
And by the way, Caitlin Clark is not good to watch. It's not fun to watch right now. This team's not fun to watch right now. Other than the 4 minutes a game she goes rogue, this is not a fun basketball team to watch. I'm sorry, the money's going to dry up in the next year. Like, I'm telling you, you're not going to sell your season ticket in 2027. Caitlin Clark being on your team or not. Like, you're more likely to sell tickets with you're more likely to sell tickets by making a playoff run without Caitlin Clark than you are when the Caitlin Clark hype is well and truly gone. If you're Caitlin, you gotta take into account that.
But the most shocking trade proposal involves a massive swap with the Dallas Wings that would change the landscape of the league forever. In this scenario, the Fever would call up the Wings and offer Clark in exchange for a wacko gun bowl and a package of minimum contracts and first-round picks. Pairing Kelsey Mitchell with a whack would give Stephanie White 2 isolation scorers who actually fit her grinded-out system. Meanwhile, Clark would be sent to a team where she could finally run the floor with players like Maddie Siegrist and Jackie Sheldon. It's a trade that sounds like pure insanity until you look at the fit. The reality is that Indiana might actually have a better chance of making the playoffs right now if they simply took Caitlin Clark off the floor. That sounds like heresy to the fans who bought season tickets, but from a purely basketball perspective, the team is built to play the way they did last year. They want to go slow, play physical, and rely on veteran guards to bail them out of late clock situations. Clark is a system breaker, and if the coach isn't willing to change the system to accommodate her, then she becomes a liability rather than an asset. It is a harsh truth that the front office is terrified to admit. Stephanie White has a history of trying to drag every opponent down to her level, making the game as ugly as possible to secure a win. While that worked for her in the past, it's like trying to replace Chauncey Billups with Steph Curry on the 2004 Pistons. Curry is the better player, but he wouldn't fit that specific gritty defensive identity. If you put a prime Steve Nash on a team that only wants to play slow-motion half-court sets, the team actually gets worse. That is exactly what we are seeing in Indiana, and it's why the calls for a trade are starting to grow louder and more desperate. The only person who seems to be winning in this entire mess is Herb Simon, who is cashing massive checks while the stadium stays full. But that honeymoon phase isn't going to last forever if the product on the court remains this stagnant. The money is going to dry up by 2027 if the Fever are still struggling to find an identity and Clark is still being used as a glorified role player. Fans didn't show up to watch her stand in the corner while other players take isolation mid-rangers. They showed up for the logo threes and the full-court transition passes that have been completely erased from her game. There is a growing sense of unfairness that permeates this entire situation for everyone involved. It's unfair to Stephanie White to be forced to coach a player who doesn't fit her defensive philosophy, and it's unfair to Clark to be a passenger in an offense that ignores her strengths. It's even unfair to the rest of the roster who are caught in the middle of a tactical war. When your star player has to go rogue just to make the team look competent, you know the foundation is crumbling. The organization is in a state of paralysis, afraid to make a move, but unable to stay the course. If the Fever choose to run this back next year without making massive changes, they are doing a disservice to the entire sport. We are witnessing the most important year of Caitlin Clark's career, especially with her shoe deals and brand endorsements on the line. If she continues to average low numbers in a system that suppresses her talent, the Caitlin Clark effect will start to fade. The hype can only carry a team so far before the results on the court start to matter, and right now those results are pointing toward a disaster of epic proportions that could set the franchise back for a decade. The isolation-heavy system that Austin Kelly and the coaching staff are running is essentially rendering Clark just another player. They have essentially turned a Ferrari into a minivan, and they seem surprised that it isn't winning races. When Clark isn't allowed to run the pick and roll or dictate the tempo, she loses the very essence of what makes her special. The your turn my turn offense is a relic of the past, and watching a generational talent get stuck in it is like watching a tragedy unfold in slow motion every single night on national television. Even the physical toll is starting to become a factor, as Clark has been dealing with injuries while trying to adapt to this grueling physical style of play. This is the most critical juncture of her professional life, and she is being asked to sacrifice her body for a system that doesn't even reward her skill set. If she continues to play this way, we might see her peak far earlier than anyone expected. The pressure to perform while being handcuffed by coaching decisions is enough to break even the strongest players, and the cracks are already starting to show in her post-game comments. The internal politics of the Fever are likely much messier than what we see on the surface. To fire everyone and start over would be an admission of total failure from the front office, something most executives aren't willing to do. They would rather try to figure it out over the next 3 years, even if that means wasting the best years of their star player's life. But as many analysts are pointing out, they won't figure it out. You can't bridge the gap between a coach who wants to play in the mud and a player who wants to play in the clouds. For anyone suggesting that Clark should just be traded to Los Angeles, the reality is that the Sparks simply don't have the assets to make it happen. It's one of the dumbest rumors circulating because it ignores the actual basketball economics at play. Why would Clark go to a team that is also in a rebuilding phase without the pieces to support her? The only teams that could actually afford her are the ones that would have to gut their entire future to get her, which puts the Fever in a position where they are essentially holding their own superstar hostage in a system she hates. The idea of cloning Kelsey Mitchell might sound like a joke, but it's actually what the current coaching staff seems to want. They want a roster full of players who can score in isolation and play tough physical defense. If they could replace Clark with another Mitchell, they would probably be a better team within Stephanie White's specific vision. This highlights the fundamental problem. The team was built for one thing, and the star was built for another. You can't have both, and trying to force it is only leading to more losses and more frustration for the fans. Last year's playoff run is increasingly looking like a fluke that gave the organization a false sense of security. They thought they were just one piece away, but they didn't realize that the piece they added would require a complete overhaul of everything they did well. Now, they are stuck with a roster that can't support the star and the star that can't fit the roster. It's a stalemate that usually ends with a blockbuster trade or a massive coaching change, and given how much the Fever have invested in White, the trade option is becoming more realistic by the day. The psychological impact of this season cannot be understated. Clark has gone from being the undisputed queen of basketball to being a system player who has to wait for permission to shoot. For a player with her ego and talent, that is a recipe for a trade request sooner rather than later. She has been a great soldier for the last few games, playing the role she was told to play, but the fire is missing. You can see it in her eyes. She knows this isn't how she's supposed to be playing, and the rest of the league knows it, too. Stephanie White's refusal to pivot her strategy is the final nail in the coffin. She is a championship-level coach, but her stubbornness might be the very thing that forces the Fever to make a move they never wanted to make. If she continues to try and make games ugly against superior teams, she will continue to alienate her best player. There is no middle ground here. You either run the Caitlin Clark show, or you run the Stephanie White show. Right now, they are trying to run both, and the result is a confusing, losing brand of basketball that benefits no one. The trade calls aren't coming from a place of hate. They are coming from a place of basketball logic. If you have a tool as powerful as Clark, and you refuse to use it correctly, you are better off giving it to someone who will. The Fever are at a crossroads that will determine the future of the WNBA for the next decade. Do they commit to the revolution Clark represents, or do they retreat back into the old ways of doing things? Every game they play under this broken system is a wasted opportunity.